We're getting ready for the City Christmas Tree, 100th annual, which brought me back to Bartlett Avenue, the street I grew up in, because you couldn't help but think about your own Christmas tree. So this is our Christmas tree story. We grew up with a white pine tree every year. I grew up thinking it was the McGivern tradition, and then when I became an adult, I just realized that a white pine tree is just a really cheap tree. My father shopped for it a couple weeks before Christmas on a Friday. He'd always wait for work to get done, and him and 5 bricklayers would go Christmas tree shopping. 6 bricklayers Christmas tree shopping for a white pine tree on a Friday afternoon. Think about it. Not before they stopped at the Uptown around the corner of Center and Humboldt, where each of the bricklayers would buy a round of Pabst Blue Ribbon beer. 6 bricklayers, 6 beers, and then they get into their cars and drive. Oh, those were the good old days. They would drive to the corner of 18th and Burleigh to a place called the Odd Lot Christmas Tree Lot, where you could buy an odd tree, $3, $4, $5 trees. And seeing it was the Odd Lot Christmas Tree Lot, all the trees had a little problem. The $3 tree stood like this. The $4 tree stood like this. And the $5 tree was almost perfect, so my father always bought the $4 tree. Yeah. Which had a crooked trunk, a small crooked trunk. He would tie that tree with twine on the roof of our Rambler station wagon and drive back to Bartlett Avenue, where my mother had been waiting, the middle window of our first floor flat here on Bartlett, waiting for my father to show up. And my father always promised that he wouldn't stop after work. So at 5:30, my mother was hopeful. By 7 o'clock, my mom was just mad. So my mother would see my father pull up here on Bartlett Avenue with the tree, that white pine tree, tied to the roof of the Rambler station wagon. She would run into the front hall closet a little mad, and she would take a wire hanger and she would disassemble a wire hanger in like 30 seconds, because when my mom is mad, she's really strong. And she would wait for my father to come in with that crooked trunk tree, and he'd come into the house and he would set that into that red and green tree stand, and he would tighten those nuts, and the tree would be standing like this. My mother would put one end of that wire hanger to the trunk of that crooked tree. The other end she would fasten to the lock on that middle window that looked out onto Bartlett Avenue. My mother could make that crooked trunk tree stand straight. She was Irish, so her food was crap, but could she make that tree stand straight? Then on Saturday morning, we would decorate it with the same red lights that we used every year, and those ornaments that I remember so fondly. With such great memories, those ornaments that I still use today. And guess what? I still have a white pine tree in my house, because that's the tradition, and because it's cheap.